Never scrape this off your wall until you know what's inside you. See something strange stuck to your wall? It's dry. It's ugly. It looks like a lump of dirt, and most people would do the same thing immediately. Scrape it off. But that could be a mistake, because sometimes that weird little crust on your wall isn't random, and it isn't empty. Something may be inside it, something alive. And once you see what it really is, you may never look at these strange wall clumps the same way again. What you're looking at is often a mud nest, and in many cases, that nest was built by a solitary wasp. Now, most people hear the word wasp and instantly think danger, pain, get rid of it. But this is where people get it wrong. Not all wasps behave the same way. Some don't live in swarms. Some don't build giant hanging nests. Some aren't flying around trying to defend a colony. Some are hunters, quiet ones. They collect mud, build tiny chambers on walls, sheds, porches, garages, and roof edges, and then they put something inside. This is the part most people never expect. Inside that little mud nest, you may find spiders, or caterpillars, or other insects. Not because the nest is dirty, not because it's rotting, but because it's a nursery. The female builds the chamber, hunts prey, places it inside, and then lays an egg. When the larva hatches, food is already waiting. So that strange thing on your wall, it may be one of the most efficient tiny predators around your home. And that's what makes this so easy to misunderstand. From the outside, it just looks gross, like dried mud, like a stain, like something you should remove before it spreads. But if you scrape it off too soon, you may be destroying a nest built by an insect that's actually helping you. Because many solitary wasps hunt the very creatures people complain about most. Spiders, plant pests, soft-bodied insects, small invaders hiding around gardens and structures. So while people panic at the word wasp, these insects may be doing free pest control right outside your door. And this is where the bigger lesson starts. A lot of the most useful creatures around a home don't look useful. They look creepy. They look annoying. They look like they don't belong there. So people react fast. Spray it, smash, scrape it off, and only later realize they may have removed the wrong thing. Now, to be clear, context matters. If something is built in a high-traffic spot, right by a doorway, near a place where people constantly brush against the wall, then, yes, you may need to deal with it carefully. But if it's tucked away under an eave, on a shed, along a garage wall, or in a quiet corner, leaving it alone is often the smarter move, at least until you know what it is. Because blind removal is usually where the mistake happens. And the visual clues are often right there. Mud texture, small tube-like shapes, sealed little chambers, a sheltered surface, a dry protected area. Those are all signs that this may not be random debris at all. It may be a carefully built structure. And once you understand that, the whole thing changes. It stops looking like a mess and starts looking like evidence. Evidence that a hidden world has been working beside your home the entire time. That's really why videos like this matter. Because the natural world around us is full of things people destroy on instinct. Not because they're dangerous, not because they're harmful, but because they look unfamiliar. And unfamiliar things trigger fast reactions. But nature doesn't always advertise itself in ways humans find comforting. Sometimes the helpers look scarier than the problem. Sometimes the thing on your wall that seems disgusting is attached there for a reason, and that reason may be far more useful than most people realize. So the next time you see a strange patch, tube, or mud clump stuck to a wall, don't assume it's just dirt. Don't assume it's a threat. And definitely don't assume it's empty. Take a closer look first, because inside that little structure, there may be a hunter's nursery, a tiny life cycle, a hidden pest controller, a small piece of the ecosystem most people never notice until it's gone. And once you understand that, scraping it off doesn't feel so harmless anymore. It feels like destroying something that may have been helping you all along. So before you remove the next strange thing from your wall, pause. Because ugly doesn't always mean dangerous. And sometimes the thing you were about to scrape away was working for you. And this idea goes further than just mud nests. Because once you start paying attention to the small, strange, overlooked things around your home, you begin to realize something surprising. Your walls, your eaves, your fence posts, your garden corners, they are not just parts of your house. They are edges, and edges are where nature concentrates. Insects, birds, spiders, and small creatures are constantly reading your property. They're looking for shelter, food, and protected places to complete their life cycles. And many of them are doing quiet, invisible work that benefits you directly. The mud nest was just one example. Think about what else people routinely destroy without understanding. The papery brown cluster tucked under a window ledge, the small silk case attached to a fence post, the tiny eggs arranged in a perfect row along the edge of a leaf, the pale cocoon pressed into the corner of a shed wall. Each of these things tends to trigger the same automatic response. Remove it, spray it, scrub it away, and each time that happens, there's a real chance that something useful just got eliminated. Not because it was dangerous, but because it was unfamiliar. And unfamiliar things make people uncomfortable. That discomfort is understandable, but it's worth questioning. When people eliminate beneficial insects without realizing it, the effects don't always show up immediately. They show up later. More aphids on the plants, more caterpillars chewing through leaves, more flies gathering near outdoor spaces, more soft-bodied pests going unchecked because the things that naturally hunted them were removed months earlier. People often don't connect those problems back to the moment they scraped something off a wall or sprayed something that looked suspicious in the garden corner. But the connection is real. Nature builds systems. Predators keep prey populations in check. Remove the predators, and the balance shifts. Sometimes slowly, sometimes in ways that take an entire season to notice. So that small decision, scrape it or leave it, can quietly ripple outward in ways that are hard to trace. There is a different way to think about the space around your home. Instead of seeing your walls, eaves, and garden edges as areas that need to be kept perfectly clean and cleared of anything unfamiliar, you can start seeing them as habitat. Not wild habitat, not unmanaged, just habitat that you understand well enough to make informed decisions about. When you know what a mud nest looks like, you don't panic. You assess. You ask, where is it located? Is it causing any actual problem? Or is it just doing its job quietly in a corner where no one goes? That shift in thinking costs you nothing, but it changes how you interact with the hidden life happening right beside your home every single day. The people who spend time watching these small things often report the same experience. At first, they found it strange. Then, they found it interesting. Then, they started noticing things they had never noticed before, even though those things had likely been happening for years. The wasp returning to the same mud nest multiple times in a single afternoon. The spider positioned perfectly beside a gap where flies tend to enter. The beetle moving through the leaf litter, doing work that most people never see and never think about. None of it requires special equipment. None of it requires expertise. It just requires slowing down for a moment and looking at what is actually there. And what most people find, once they start looking, is that the world right beside their house is far more active and far more organized than it ever appeared from a distance. The mud nest is a small thing, a tiny dried structure on a wall, but it points toward something larger. It points toward the fact that most of us have been trained to see unfamiliar things as threats and familiar things as safe. And that instinct made sense at certain points in human history. But it doesn't always serve us well when the unfamiliar thing is actually a solitary wasp building a nursery, or a helpful beetle, or a parasitic insect that keeps caterpillar populations under control. Learning to pause before reacting is one of the most practical skills a person can develop when it comes to the natural world. Not because every strange thing should be left alone forever, but because the first question should always be, do I actually understand what this is? If the answer is no, then the next step is to find out. Before you scrape, before you spray, before you assume, because the thing on your wall might just be ugly, or it might be working.